Mr. Shaw.
Good morning, Mr. Vavasor.
Terrible weather, Mr. Shaw.
Yes, shocking.
I see you at the bank, Mr. Shaw.
Right, Mr. Vavasor.
Morning, Gap. Morning.
Here, look at it, Gap!
My dear Mr. Shaw, are you all right?
Yes, I think so.
Here, he done that on purpose. He was trying to kill ya.
It weighs 80,000 tons, you know.
That is heavy, Hastings.
It's over 1,000 feet long.
Yes, Hastings.
Its siren can be heard 10 miles away. 10 miles, Poirot.
Oh, mon Dieu.
I'd give my eye teeth to be on this maiden voyage. I mean, it's an engineering marvel.
It is a marvel to me, Hastings, how anyone wishes to travel on such a contraption.
Contraption? The Queen Mary? Poirot, you're going too far.
No, Hastings, I'm going nowhere. Even to contemplate such a matter gives me the mal de mer.
I can assure you, Poirot, you wouldn't be seasick on the Queen Mary. Steady as a rock.
Hastings, it is 20 years ago that I came to this country in a boat across the channel. And still I am not recovered.
Mr. Poirot, this just came to you by personal messenger.
Thank you, Miss Lemon. The London and Scottish Bank.
We don't have an account there, do we?
No. Mr. Poirot did have some problems with his bank last year. The chairman was arrested.
Yes, I remember. It was Poirot who put the man behind bars.
This is most unusual. Indeed, a circumstance unique. An attempted murder? American Liberty bonds?
Have they been robbed?
Not yet, Miss Lemon. But I think that they are going to be. And when they are, there is at stake the sum of $1 million.
Are you aware of the nature of Liberty bonds?
I have no personal experience.
They're the equivalent of blank checks, payable to whomsoever holds them.
And so if they were to be mislaid?
The same as losing cash. It would ruin us.
Tell me, Monsieur Shaw, why is it necessary to transport these bonds?
The bank is currently extending its credit in America, Mr. Poirot.
We must have funds in place in New York. Please.
Thank you. And it is Monsieur Shaw who will take them?
Yes, in 2 days' time. We'll be traveling on the Queen Mary.
I say. Oh. Sorry.
Now, if Monsieur Shaw were unable to make this journey, who would travel in his place?
The Assistant General Manager, Mr. Ridgway.
Well, Mr. Ridgway is above suspicion.
I would certainly like to think so.
Why is that, Monsieur Vavasor?
He has been with the bank for 7 years. He's also engaged my secretary.
Yes, gentlemen. I will examine this matter for you.
Really, Mr. Vavasor?
No, Mr. Shaw, that car tried to kill you. I saw it with my own eyes.
The red sports car.
A singer, you think?
Yes.
But you are unable to make out the number of the registration.
It happened too quickly. And to be truthful, my eyesight is not good.
I'm sorry, Mr. Vavasor. I still think you're blowing this whole thing out of proportion.
We'll let Mr. Poirot be the judge of that. You'd better have a word with our Mr. McNeil. He's the head of security. I'm sure you'll find him more than helpful.
I have to tell you, Mr. Poirot, I consider your presence here to be a gross intrusion in my affairs.
That, I would say, is for Monsieur Vavasour to decide.
I would have you know that in the 5 years that I have been head of security here, not so much as a paperclip has gone astray.
Monsieur McNeil, I'm sure if such a thing were to happen, you would be the man ideal for the case.
Here it is, Mr. Poirot, the portmanteau in which the bonds will travel. I had it built to my own design. Steel plate inside, a 5-lever lock, hardened steel, clutch screws here and here. There are just 3 keys, one for Mr. Shaw and one for Mr. Vavasour.
And the third?
For me, of course.
And what if Monsieur Ridgway had to make the journey?
Mr. Ridgway? Well, that's the bank's lookout, but I have to say he would not be my first choice as courier.
And why is that, Monsieur McNeil?
You're the detective, Mr. Poirot. You work it out.
Thank you, Sandra. Mr. Poirot, isn't it?
Monsieur Ridgway? My associate, Captain Hastings.
Please sit down, gentlemen.
Thank you.
I suppose you've come about Mr. Shaw.
You heard what took place?
Yes. But I'm sure it was an accident.
Why?
Well, I mean, who's going to knock off old Shaw? I mean, he's utterly harmless and dry as old bones.
I understand that you yourself would travel to America if Monsieur Shaw were indisposed.
Yes. A bit of fun, eh? And on the Queen Mary, too.
I'll say.
You would like to go?
Of course I would. Oh, but not enough to. You don't think?
What car do you drive, Monsieur Ridgway?
I don't. I did have a car. It was a Singer.
The color?
Red. But I hadn't had it for weeks. You see, I sold it. I didn't like it. It was the ignition. I could never get the damn thing to start.
He was lying.
He was not perhaps telling the truth in entirety.
The Singer's got a brand new ignition system. Racing start. It's the best on the road.
Ah, Hastings, always the enthusiast.
Mr. Poirot? Can I talk to you? My name is Esme Dalgleish. I'm engaged to be married to Philip Ridgway.
Well, I'd say he's a very lucky man.
Thank you.
And you are also the secretary of Monsieur Vavasour.
Yes, that's right.
How can I help you, mademoiselle?
Mr. Poirot, may I speak to you in confidence?
You have my assurance, mademoiselle.
I love Philip very much. We hope to be married in the autumn, but it's just these bonds, Mr. Poirot. The money.
It concerns you.
Yes, because if Mr. Shaw were unable to go to America, Philip would take his place. And I'm afraid for him, Mr. Poirot.
You're afraid someone might attack him?
Well, yes, there's no saying what some people might do for such a sum of money. Mr. Poirot, I know you will do everything you can, but please, I beg of you, keep an eye on Philip. Whatever happens. I'm frightened he's going to come to harm.
You're very punctual, Mr. Ridgway. Time for a pint?
No. No, I had to get back to the bank.
Oh, yes. And the money?
It's on its way. Another week, that's all.
Another week.
10 days. No more. I promise you. It's all arranged.
Thank you, Mrs. Winter.
Mr. Poirot, thank goodness you're back.
What is it, Miss Lemon?
It's the bank. They telephoned. They're Mr. Shaw. He's been poisoned.
Good evening. We wish to see you, Monsieur Shaw.
And you are?
Hercule Poirot.
Oh, yes. Come in.
Thank you.
How is he?
Still very weak. It was strychnine, you know,
Strychnine?
in his coffee. More guests, Mr. Shaw. Just 5 minutes, then sleep.
Thank you. Thank you, Nurse Long. Mr. Poirot.
No, Monsieur Shaw, please. You must not tire yourself.
It was a close thing, Mr. Poirot. One more mouthful. and
I have begun an investigation.
It could have been anyone. Anyone.
Yes, but at least we have ascertained who was the last person in Mr. Shaw's office before the coffee was drunk.
And who was that, Monsieur MacNeil?
The same person who will now be taking the bonds. Mr. Ridgway.
I thought you were going to take me out this evening.
I was. And I want to. But I can't. I'm sorry, old girl. It's business.
It's always business.
Well, you should talk to old Vavasour. He's the one to blame.
Philip, do you still love me?
What? Of course I do. I'm wild about you.
I never see you anymore.
Look, things will get better. Once I just turn the corner. Look, I've got to fly. Oh, darling, look damn silly of me. I left my wallet at the office.
Oh, Philip.
I seem to keep doing this, don't I?
I've got a couple of pounds.
I'm sorry, darling.
Philip, look, if you're in trouble,
Of course I'm not in trouble.
you can tell me.
Everything's going to be fine. See you tomorrow.
The keys, Mr. MacNeil. You know what to do when you reach New York, Mr. Ridgway?
Yes, sir.
Good. One for you, Mr. Ridgway. Mr. MacNeil, you're responsible for delivering that to Mr. Shaw at his home.
Very good, sir.
And one for me.
Is Mr. Shaw still not better, sir?
I'm afraid not, Miss Dalgleish. He's going to be in bed for at least 2 weeks.
I'd be glad to make the journey, sir.
Thank you, Mr. MacNeil. But there's business to be done in New York, which in Mr. Shaw's absence, only Mr. Ridgway can handle.
It's only 10 days, old girl. They say it's going to be the fastest crossing ever.
You may be sure I'm taking no chances with your fiancée's safety, Miss Dalgleish, after what has happened to Mr. Shaw. I have asked Mr. Poirot to accompany the bonds. He's letting me know later today.
With due respect, I can't quite see what's to be gained by employing a Belgian.
It's just these bonds, Mr. Poirot. The money. I I love Philip very much. I know you will do everything you can, but please, I beg of you, keep an eye on Philip.
Come on, Jonathan, it's time we were home.
I put in your blue tie and the mauve silk waistcoat.
And I shall take also the brown suit and the 2 waistcoats that coordinate.
You can't take your entire wardrobe, Mr. Poirot.
Poirot? Ah, Hastings, enfin. You must begin at once the packing.
We're going?
On the Queen Mary.
What, you and me?
Yes, Hastings, we travel with the bonds. I have this confirmed with Monsieur Vavasour this afternoon.
That's wonderful, Poirot. What on earth made you change your mind?
I cannot refuse a lady.
Especially if she's a queen. I promise you, Poirot, you won't have a twinge of seasickness.
So you say, mon ami. But I take the precautions all the same.
$1 million in Liberty bonds.
Bound at last, the Queen Mary on her maiden voyage. Tens of thousands of people have poured into Southampton to catch a glimpse of the world's newest and greatest liner. But what of the privileged few who will sail aboard her? 1 or 2 will hardly remember the occasion, whilst others are determined that this will be one trip that they won't forget. And here's a familiar face, Europe's most famous detective, Hercule Poirot. Hot on the track of a well-deserved break and looking forward to a life on the ocean wave. Another case for Monsieur Poirot. There are over 2,000 cases being loaded safely on board, and it's certainly an arresting sight as the sailing hour arrives and the Queen Mary puts to sea. And now our camera takes to the air as Britain's newest liner leaves the sanctuary of home waters and heads into the Atlantic Ocean for the first time. But will she steal that blue ribbon? It's currently held by the Normandy with a crossing time of just 4 days.
Bonjour. Morning.
Good morning, Mr. Poirot.
Bonjour, mademoiselle. Bonjour, Hastings. Comment ça va?
Oh, I'm terrible. I tell you, Poirot, it's not seasickness. I'm never seasick. Must have been that oyster last night.
If you wish, I have some pills.
Thank you, Poirot. I'll be perfectly all right. Oh, I say, Poirot.
Wait.
There's a young lady in the cabin next door.
Yes, it is just now that we have met.
Miss Brooks. Miranda. We were supposed to go swimming together. If you see her again, could you tell her I'm...
A bad oyster, no?
Yes. Bring it in.
Good morning.
Bonjour, Monsieur Ridgway.
I thought you were the steward.
No. You have not yet had a breakfast.
No. Actually, I had a bit of a night of it.
Wait. And the portmanteau?
Oh. The key's perfectly safe, Mr. Poirot. You don't have to worry. I'll keep the key in my pocket and lock the cabin door each time I go out. If you see the steward, could you ask him to get a move on? I'm famished.
Well, hello again.
Ah, mademoiselle. My friend Captain Hastings regrets that he is unable to swim with you today.
Oh, well, that's okay. I was feeling pretty terrible myself. I was dancing until 3.
Ah, and yet you are traveling alone, Mademoiselle Brooke?
You're never alone on a ship, Mr. Poirot. I see you.
Mademoiselle, pardon, but what is the time?
It's just 9:30.
Thank you.
Ah, Mr. Poirot. Good morning.
Bonjour.
The captain sends his compliments, but I'm afraid he won't be at his table tonight.
Oh, there is a problem.
There's been a patch of fog forecast, sir. Nothing to concern you. But the captain will have to remain on the bridge.
Ah, well. Please to convey my regrets to the captain.
Yes, sir. Looks as if this may lose us the blue ribbon.
Oh.
I suppose it's always next time.
Oui.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Just a little fish for me, please. Poached with dry toast.
Merci beaucoup. Mais c'est incroyable. This ship that is not a ship, it is, how you say, a marvel.
Yes, Poirot.
Ah, but of course, my poor Hastings, he still has the...
Food poisoning.
Evening, Ridgway. Can we count you in tonight?
I'll be there.
See if you can win back some of that money, eh?
You play the cards?
Yes. It passes the time. And it's all very friendly. We just play for a few pounds.
Merci. Ah, les cervelles au beurre.
Oh, what's that?
It is the brains of the calf fried in butter.
I think perhaps I'll go and have another lie down. Queen's high, damn it.
Well, I'm afraid you're blown, Ridgway.
Yes. I'm sure you'll accept an IOU. Oh, Miss Brooks, Miranda.
Why, Captain Hastings. Can't you sleep?
No, I couldn't. I thought I heard someone didn't go overboard just now, did they?
Only the orchestra. But they've been going overboard all night.
Yes. I'm sorry I couldn't join you.
Why, I'm sorry you couldn't make it.
Still, we'll be in New York in a few hours. Perhaps we could,
Yes, well, maybe we'll meet again.
Well, yes. Miss Brooks.
Good night, Captain Hastings.
Ridgway? Captain Hastings. Ridgway. The bonds.
Wait here, please.
Is it really true? They've gone.
Yes, sir, I'm afraid so.
But they're an hour from New York, you say. They must still be on the ship.
I've cabled them to start a person-to-person search, sir, but it would be easier if I were there.
They must be found. If the bonds are sold, it could bring down the entire bank.
I'm aware of that, sir. Which is why I must ask you one question.
Of course, anything.
Do you still have the key I gave you?
It hasn't left my sight.
Britain's greatest liner steams into New York at the end of her first Atlantic crossing, without the blue ribbon, after fog delayed her for more than 11 hours. Even so, New York gave a frenzied welcome to Britain's Queen of the Sea. The crossing was completed in 4 days, 12 hours, 24 minutes, at an average speed of 29 knots. And just listen to that roar of welcome.
I swear to heaven, Mr. Poirot, I had the key all the time.
And where were you all night, Mr. Ridgway?
I was playing cards. I know I should have been here, but I suppose it's a weakness of mine.
Gambling.
How much did you lose?
About £100. And the same the night before. This doesn't look too good for me, does it?
Leave us, Monsieur Ridgway. We shall speak again later.
I'll go and make my report to the captain.
say, look at this part. It's all cut and scratched at the back here.
Now this I have examined already.
Almost as if someone tried to force it, but couldn't.
Precisely.
But then they managed to unlock it anyway.
Curious. It is very curious. They waste much time trying to prise it open, and then, sapristi, they find I have the key all the time.
Unless they wanted to make it look as if it had been forced.
Oui, c'est possible.
But then it must have been Ridgway. Nobody else had a key.
You are disappointed?
Well, I mean, I think he's a bit of an ass in many ways, but I didn't think he had it in him to...
Neither did I, mon ami.
We have to find them, McNeil.
Yes, sir. Or the person who stole them, sir.
Quite. Mr. Shaw had his key.
Yes, sir.
Yes, of course he had.
Do you have yours, sir?
What?
Your key.
Of course I have.
May I see it, please, sir?
Really, McNeil?
So, I came out here, went over to the rail here. Then I heard a splash, which seemed to come from over there. And this is where I met Miranda.
Mademoiselle Brooks.
Yes, she came from over there.
Now, the cabin of Monsieur Ridgway, it looks out onto this deck, does it not?
Yes. Yes, it does.
But she was carrying nothing.
No. If she had taken them, she could have thrown them overboard, and then they could have drifted into New York.
And then, perhaps they grew the little fins and swam ashore.
Yes. It is a stupid idea.
Au contraire, my dear Hastings, you are as perceptive as ever.
Wait a minute. It was here.
Mr. Vavasour, do you realize how serious this matter is?
Of course I do.
This is a matter for the police now.
Police?
Yes, sir. Your key, your secretary's fiancé, and your idea to send the bonds in the first place.
McNeil, you work for me.
I think you better come with me, sir. Down to the yard.
Ah, Mr. Poirot. Have you made any progress, sir?
We make great steps.
I wish I could say the same.
This gentleman is a customs officer, sir.
The name's Franklin, sir. Tom Franklin. And may I say what an honor it is to shake the hand of the famous Hercule Poirot.
Thank you. You have begun the search, Monsieur Franklin?
Yes, sir, and I have to tell you, a bent dime couldn't get past my men. But so far, nothing.
Has Miss Brooks gone ashore yet? Blonde, American girl, very beautiful.
Sir, there are over 1,000 passengers on board.
In any case, officer, you're too late.
Too late?
The bonds will not be found on the passengers, and they are not on the ship.
That's impossible, sir. They can't have got off the ship.
I assure you, gentlemen, that is the case. There is nothing more for us here. Hastings, you and I must return to London at once.
And Mr. Ridgway?
He will be returning with us.
But what about the search, Mr. Poirot? Your Mr. McNeil was pretty insistent.
I assure you, officer, Monsieur McNeil does not belong to me.
Mr. McNeil, where is Mr. Vavasour?
He is at the police station, Miss Dalglish.
The police? Why?
I'm afraid that is confidential information, Miss Dalglish.
He is the general manager of this bank, and I am his secretary.
That makes no difference.
I have a right to know. This is ridiculous. But let me remind you, Mr. McNeil, in a few days, Mr. Poirot will be back.
I don't see how he can help.
And home again. The Queen Mary returns to home waters. And as we circle round, another member of the line passes, the Berengaria, outward bound. Two great vessels passing at sea. And now the Queen Mary heads into Southampton water and prepares to berth. Many happy returns to your home waters.
Good to be home, eh, Poirot? Oh, look, there's your fiancée.
Officers.
Yes, sir? Mr. Poirot.
I want you to arrest this man for the theft of $1 million in the Liberty bonds.
What?
I say, Poirot.
Well, you say so, sir. Come on, you.
How could you?
It looked such a beautiful ship, Mr. Poirot.
It was indeed an experience most remarkable, Miss Lemon.
I'm only sorry it wasn't all more successful.
But it was a great success. Not once did I succumb to the mal de mer.
Poirot?
Ah, Hastings, you are ready. We have played the games long enough, Hastings. It is now time to settle the scores.
Poirot! This is monstrous. I do not know what happened to my key.
When did you notice it had gone, Monsieur Vavasseur?
Only when McNeil asked for it.
Eh bien, who then had access to your office?
Myself? My secretary?
One more question, if you please, monsieur. Before the departure of the Queen Mary, who was it to put the bonds into the portmanteau?
I did. Why?
It is just as I thought, monsieur, and it tells me all that I need to know. Thank you.
Mr. Poirot!
Where now? I don't suppose you'd care to tell me what's going on. You know, Poirot, you really are quite impossible.
Why, Hastings?
You never tell me anything. I've no idea where we are or where we're going.
Have patience, mon ami. Soon all will be made clear.
You!
You must understand, mademoiselle, that I am only trying to help you.
You arrest my fiancé? McNeil arrests Mr. Vavasseur? You're both as bad as each other.
Je vous en prie, mademoiselle, have patience.
Well?
When you came to see me, it was because you are afraid of Monsieur Ridgway, no?
I was afraid for him.
No, mademoiselle. You knew he was a gambler most compulsive. You knew of his debts. And it was for this reason that he sold his car. Yes?
I can't deny it, Mr. Poirot. You seem to know.
And you were also afraid, were you not? That if he were entrusted with the $1 million Liberty bonds, that he would take them and disappear. You wish to protect him, mademoiselle. And it is for this reason that you stole the key of your employer.
I don't know what you mean.
Please, mademoiselle, do not try to deceive me. I know.
You took the key.
Because you wish to save Monsieur Ridgway, you are willing to let us believe that the key that opened the portmanteau was the key of your employer, Monsieur Vavasseur. But I'm afraid, mademoiselle, that will not work. Because the keys have nothing to do with it.
Why have you dragged me here, Mr. Poirot?
I thought it might be instructive for you, Monsieur McNeil.
Is it really true? Both Mr. Vavasseur and Ridgway arrested?
Well, one of them stole the bonds.
No. They stole nothing. Indeed, there was nothing to steal. You see, Monsieur McNeil, the bonds were taken long before the Queen Mary set sail.
But that's impossible. We were with the portmanteau all the time.
No, pas du tout, mon ami. Monsieur Vavasseur, he put the bonds into the portmanteau. And the eyesight of Monsieur Vavasour is poor. He told us so himself.
$1 million in Liberty bonds.
No. He would not have noticed that the bonds that he was holding were all forgeries.
Forgeries? Wait a minute, you mean the bonds on the Queen Mary were fakes?
Exactly that, mon ami.
But why? What good would that do anyone?
Mr. Shaw has got to rest now.
Ah, yes, of course. Hastings. Nurse Long, pardon, but what is the time?
It's 4:10.
C'est ça. Ah, mademoiselle. Pardon, but what is the time?
It's just 9:30.
On the ship also, I asked you the same question. The disguise was to perfection, but the movement was exactly the same. It was the movement of an experienced nurse who always wears the watch on her chest.
Miranda?
Mademoiselle Brooks. Or Mademoiselle Long, who traveled with a copy of one of the keys, who stole the bonds that were fake, and who disposed of them.
I don't know what you're talking about. You're talking gibberish.
But she can't be. Miranda Brooks was an absolute stunner.
Monsieur Philip Ridgway would take the blame, huh? Monsieur Ridgway, with the problems of his gambling, he would be the obvious suspect. He would become the, how do you say, the scapegoat.
But he did steal them. He was the one traveling with them.
Precisely what you were intended to think, Monsieur McNeil. That was why it was essential that Monsieur Ridgway should be on that boat. No. It was Mademoiselle Brooks who tried to kill Monsieur Shaw with a motor car. It was Mademoiselle Brooks who arranged the poisoning.
Miranda planned all that?
All right, yes. Here you are.
Good Lord.
What are you going to do? Call the police? All right, let's get on with it. All this talk.
No, mademoiselle. One step at a time. You see, Mademoiselle Brooks, she now makes the attempt gallant to shield her accomplice.
Ridgway?
No. How simple it would have been for Monsieur Shaw to remove those bonds that were entrusted to him if he had taken them on board the boat, huh? Too simple. Too obvious. The bank would have known precisely where to look.
Are you implying that I was in some way involved in this? I was bedridden.
Yes, of course you were, Monsieur Shaw. With the poison. That was fake. As was the attempt to kill you with a motor car. It was all part of your plan to get Monsieur Philip Ridgway to take your place on the boat.
But Mr. Shaw still had his key.
Oh, no, Monsieur McNeil. He had a copy of his key. Mademoiselle Brooks, she had the real one.
Oh, God. I'm sorry, Miranda.
Your husband and wife?
No. But we intended to be.
I'm sorry.
Don't be. Prison can't be much worse than 25 years at the London and Scottish Bank.
All right, Ridgway. You're done.
Where's McNeil?
I don't see why you had to have me arrested, though.
Because, Monsieur Ridgway, I saw the loan sharks waiting for you at Southampton. And I thought you would be safer in the police cell.
Well, that's true, I suppose.
Yeah, and it also allowed the real culprits to relax their guard a little, huh?
I can't tell you how much we owe you, Mr. Poirot.
I've been promoted to joint general manager. I paid off all my debts.
And there aren't going to be any more. Thank you for everything.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
Au revoir. We deserve to celebrate a little, eh, Hastings? A glass of crème de menthe? Ah, you scorn the liqueur, Hastings. Alors, for you, my friend, a whiskey, perhaps?
No, thanks.
Hastings, you are not elated by our success?
Oh, yes, very good.
Pas encore le mal de mer?
No, I'm fine.
Hastings, we have just completed a case most successful. 2 men have been released from the imprisonment most unjust. You have been privileged to watch Hercule Poirot at his most brilliant, and on top of this, you have had a nice ride on the Queen Mary.
Well, I know, Poirot. I'm sorry. It's Miranda Brooks.
Hastings. You still have the hankering for the glamorous young woman, huh?
No, not at all. Quite the opposite, in fact. It's just that, well, there she was, as you say, glamorous young woman. But with a bit of a wig and a few bits of makeup, she could transform herself into that dowdy hag of a nurse.
Yes, it was indeed very well done, Hastings.
But, well, I mean, if a woman can do that one way, she can do it the other.
No, Hastings.
Well, I mean, then where are you?
At the beginning of wisdom, mon ami. Now that also is something to celebrate, n'est-ce pas?